Welcome to Movie Magic Reviews brought to you by Megadads. I'm Antonio, joined by my best buddy Clay, and today we're going to talk about the new film, The Bikeriders. And we just want to let you know if it's worth seeing, if it's worth your time, if it's worth your money. So it's going to be an honest review. Before we begin, reminder that we start talking spoiler free, and then only at the very end, after we warn you, we'll talk some spoilers, just a few. So we'll get right into it, talking about The Bikeriders. So it was written and directed by Jeff Nichols. A co-writer was also Danny Leone, starring Jodie Comer, Austin Butler, and of course, Tom Hardy. Here's a quick synopsis. After a chance encounter, headstrong Kathy is drawn to Benny, member of Midwestern motorcycle club, the Vandals. As the club transforms into a dangerous underworld of violence, Benny must choose between Kathy and his loyalty to the club. Let's get into it. What did we think? Clay, I'll let you start on this one because I'll be quite honest, I'm going to be a little negative.
So before we even do that, what did you know about this movie going into it? Anything? I mean, this was one that you came to me, you're like, what about this movie? And I was like, I don't even know what that is. And so I went on YouTube and looked it up. So I went in pretty fresh with just like, I don't know what to expect. The trailers made it look decent. So I was like, okay, like it looks like it's got some good actors in it. The topic and the subject matter seemed relatively interesting. I mean, I watched Sons of Anarchy back in the day on FX.
Did? Okay.
And so like I have some, obviously that's still super fictionalized too, but I have some, understanding of TV and movie when it comes to biker gangs in that sense. I don't know how realistic it is, but I was like, yeah, that looks interesting. You and I both have movie subscriptions, so we can pretty much go see anything we want without paying additional fees or whatever. And so this was one where I was like, I might have my wife sit this one out and I'll just go by myself. Not that I didn't want her to see it, but I don't think she would have been super, like, she would have seen it but didn't seem super interested, so I just kind of went by myself for this one. But yeah, what did you know before going in? Did you have any preconceived things or thoughts
I didn't have it on my radar, except for the fact of when I did see a trailer and seeing Tom Hardy was in the flick, I was in because I'm a huge Tom Hardy fan. I don't care if he's playing a minor role or a major role. He just always has that presence. There's kind of a joke going around with his career that he just has like a billion like kind of quote unquote bad accents. So he really kind of changes it up quite a bit. If you ever seen him in Peaky Blinders, he was excellent in there.
Yes, he was.
He obviously in the latest like Sony Venom movies, he's been in there. He's been in a bunch of things, and he's always made an impact. He was in Mad Max, obviously, Fury Road. Whenever he is there, whether he's playing Bane or he's playing, something more serious, he's just, I have to see a movie if he's going to be in it. And then the biker thing, like, I'm like, okay, this is going to be a gritty kind of action flick. I'm going to see some violence. I'm going to see some action. I'm in. And that's why I was like, let's put this on our list. Let's put this on our summer viewing list. And I got to say, I'm pretty disappointed overall, which brings me to like my first con. I thought that the movie would be a lot more gritty and action packed. I mean, you're talking about the bike riders and a biker gang, and to keeping it spoiler free, like the reality is that this is like based off of inspired by true events by a book that was written about a real gang that happened, and there was like a photographer who was also doing like audio recordings and things who eventually released a book. And I think because of that, and because of the time period that we're talking in, like the movie kind of talks about how things kind of devolve over time. Like it starts as like a social club with like some normal guys that are just kind of like somewhat outcasts, and then devolves. And I was really, I think, used to seeing, like, when I think of a biker gang, instead of like just like a social club, that it's going to be a little more violent, a little more gritty. And there's definitely that devolution like to that, but I was like expecting more. So right off the bat, I got to caution people, like, don't expect like a Mad Max type movie. It's not that. It's more of a timepiece. It's more of like a, you had to be there and there's like a character story to it. How about you? Pros, cons, what'd you think of the flick?
Yeah. I I didn't dislike the movie. I enjoyed it. I got through it and I was happy that I saw it. I think I'm kind of more in the middle on this one, where it wasn't a bad movie. It wasn't the best movie either. I'd probably
Was a
rewatch
little mid.
it. Yeah, I'm more on the mid side of it. I didn't really expect it to be super action packed. I kind of already had a vibe. I didn't think that it was going to be more like interview-esque like it was. That
Yeah.
kind of caught me off guard a little bit. But I knew that it was based off this idea of like a person interviewing a biker gang and kind of following them around or whatever. And so, that being said, uh, yeah, I don't know. Pros and cons. I mean, the action part didn't bother me. I thought the runtime was fine. I thought the pacing was pretty good. Like by the time it was over, I was like, okay, yeah, like this was supposed to be over. I guess when I went in, I thought that it was going to be a movie about the first biker gang, and I guess
Yeah,
it's
I
not
kind of got that
really
impression
that.
from the trailer as well. Yeah.
Um, one thing I was curious about, I was a little confused where this was supposed to be like based out of. Like I know it's Chicago, or at least near Chicago, Chicago based. But it was like the main actress in it, you said her name. Is it Jodie Comer? Is that her?
Jodie Comer.
Her character had this accent in the whole movie that was really unique.
Yes.
Do you recognize that accent from being Chicago based?
Yeah, I do live in Chicago, but this is not. This is like a huge point about the film. The actress ends up being like one of the center characters. The way that the story is delivered, she just narrates kind of a lot, introduces a lot of like the segments of time, and her accent is just a standout thing. Like it's a star of the movie, and she really goes for it. I don't know if that's supposed to be a Chicago accent. I don't, you can't really, we can't hear our Chicago accents to those around us. Like we don't understand how we're talking. But this was just full blown and slightly annoying to me. And I think you have to go into the movie knowing that the way they chose to present the story is kind of like oh, okay, here's an interview retelling of, well, here's how it happened. And I think that the way that the film kicks off and the way that everything is told in that way, it kind of irked me a little bit. It wasn't just like, here's the story. It was like through that lens. I don't know what that accent was about, but it's there and it's a huge part of the film.
So,
Yeah.
according to this article, she based it off actual interview audio that they gave her of a real life
Okay.
Kathy. And so she was given 30 minutes of audio with the real Kathy being interviewed. And so she basically, hit it exactly.
So she could have nailed it. It could have just been, this was the true to life
right
accent
and I
of
guess
the woman who is involved in this story. Okay.
Yeah, and I guess it comes from, there was backlash in the film from viewers, backlash of her accent. Regardless, I don't know if it was annoying or not to me, but it was unique, and I think that the actress who played her, Jodie Comer, however you say her last name, I thought she did a really good job. Like, I thought she was a very believable character. She was maybe a little bit annoying at times, but this whole character trope of, I don't know if I doubt this is a spoiler, but a woman marrying like a bad guy, and then her eventually wanting him to like leave the life behind. Like that whole trope is a little overdone. It's like, you knew this going in, you knew he was this way. The fact that you would think that he would ever change is like, it just seems silly. And so I could see how people would be annoyed with that. It's kind of like in Breaking Bad when like everybody hated his wife because she was like the voice of
Skylar.
reason. Yeah,
Yeah.
Skylar. And he was like the bad guy, but everyone hated her for some reason. It's just kind of like one of those things. Um, but I could see how people would be on a little divisive with her.
And it brings me to my pro. There's nobody in this film that does a bad job with the acting. Like they are all on it. You know, there's moments of like severe tension, and I've believed everyone were those characters. And you know, when it came to the reason why I really wanted to see the film, Tom Hardy, he did an amazing job at the character that he was trying to play, and I believed it. I believed everything that was happening, and it really kind of puts you in that timepiece. So everyone did a good job. It was just like you were alluding to, it's just kind of mid as far as the story. Like nothing was super surprising. It was a little bit by the book, and you know that coupled with that, had to be kind of grounded because it was based on a true story. It all kind of made it a little like lukewarm for me. You know, it's not just a straight up action flick. It's just it is what it is. It's a story and a retelling things that happened how it happened.
I agree to a point. I thought they did a good job bouncing around. Like when it would start to get stale, they'd be like, "That reminds me of the one time we went down to the biker rally," and then it cuts to this thing, and then they can kind of do these like cutaways. They jump times a little bit, and so that helped to keep it a little bit fresher, in my opinion. Rather than showing a linear story, they were able to kind of jump around a little bit, which I thought helped it. There's not much else to say about Tom Hardy. I think you hit on it mostly. I agree. I thought he did a really good job in this. He was one of the main reasons I wanted to see it. I was excited. I think the more I see him in things, I think the better he's getting. There's certain movies that he's done that I don't necessarily think are like the best. But Peaky Blinders, I think he did a fantastic job. The Venom movies are just like okay. And so like there's sometimes like the way he talks is hard to understand him, but in this one, man, like this character and this voice that he developed for this character, I thought were perfect. I thought he did a great job with it. I couldn't get enough of him from start to finish, and I thought he did a really good job. Austin Butler was a character, an actor that I'm not as familiar with. I haven't seen Elvis. Have you seen Elvis?
No.
Okay, so obviously a lot of people know him from that. People say he did a good job. I haven't seen it, and so I was a little interested to see kind of what he would bring to this movie. His character is an interesting one. There's not a lot of depth to him.
I would say. Yeah.
Not even a lot of lines, that for that matter. He's kind of quiet. He's kind of grunty. Maybe says a few words, real like soft spoken. So it's more about his mannerisms and his facial expressions and stuff. And so, I mean, he sold the character well. I mean, nobody watching this movie didn't think, man, that guy looks really cool. The way he's sitting there on his motorcycle smoking a cigarette, like he played it well. And obviously, toward the end, you see a little bit of character development from his character, and so like that was all good and fine. But and then the other person that I was really excited about seeing, and I don't know if this is a spoiler or not, Norman Reedus is in this movie.
They show him in trailers. And
so I was like,
make an appearance as a character.
I thought he was going to be in it a little more than he actually was, but I'm glad he was in it. One con, he was wearing like prosthetic teeth in it, and they just looked and sounded really fake. And so that was a little bit, I was hoping to get a little more character depth, acting depth from him, because I feel like he can be a really good actor. I just feel like he also gets these grunty, mean characters that don't say a lot. And it's kind of, I was hoping to see him in something a little different, but I was happy to see him nonetheless. So
what do you think? Wrapping it up, should people see it? How many stars would you rate this movie, The Bikeriders?
I would still say it's worth watching. So I'm still gonna I'm gonna land middle of the road with a 3 out of 5. Like I said, I'm kind of like, if any of it appeals to you, I would say go for it. If you like the subject matter, if you like any of the actors, I would say go for it. But if none of that sounds like your fancy, then it's probably not worth it. But yeah, so 3 out of 5 for me.
I'm gonna agree. A 3 out of 5, solid. I would say, see it if you're, interested at all. I think, if you're interested in, seeing another like Tom Hardy flick, if you're interested in the culture or like, you don't mind a timepiece, I think it's for you in that sense. So
Well,
yeah,
then
solid 3 out of 5 as
why
well.
did you text me after the movie and say you're not allowed to pick the movies anymore because this was terrible? Like,
I didn't I didn't
that's pretty
enjoy it
much what
at
you
first.
said.
I didn't enjoy the movie at first, and then I was like reflecting on, well, a minor spoiler. There's characters that I think if you bring in a certain background, or you're a father, you're struggling with loss, with certain things and events that happen in your life as well, then you really feel like some of the events that happen, and that really hit home for me. Like afterwards, I thought about the movie a lot more after, like I was out and like was wondering about, oh, I wish they would have done this a little different. Like it left me wanting more, oddly. And again, like there was a lot of untapped potential with characters. This easily could have been, I don't know if it needed more time, or they needed to divert more from the true story, like telling, to just take more liberties. But I think that it could have been even better. So I don't think this movie deserves a 2.5, or 2 stars. Like it's better than that. So I will
Okay.
go with a solid 3.
All right. Fair enough.
All right, this is your warning now. Getting into some spoilers, though, we gotta talk about it. So if you're coming out of the movie and you just have to talk to somebody about it that had just seen it with you, what we wanted to bring up. So go ahead and tune off if you got your fill for that short review. But the one thing I really wanted to bring up, and what I'll spoil here, is like the fact of these guys kind of being like average Joes, and then kind of devolving into like more and more of the like gang culture, and like just taking it off the rails with like violence, drugs, and like things like that. I found that really intriguing, and especially with Tom Hardy's character, who had daughters, and then he ends up, passing. He ends up getting killed. I really felt for that, and they don't show the daughters even in the callback, because they show him once. It's like he has daughters. He's a family man just watching TV, and then he gets this idea like to start the club, and then they're kind of like posers a bit. They're like trying to be badass, but even the woman says like, they're not about anything. They're just guys with nothing better to do who love bikes. And then it's like it really hit home. Like I really thought about him and his daughters a lot, and like what it means to kind of want to be a rebel but not truly be a rebel at your core. I don't know. I thought about this movie a lot after I left. So what did you think about that? Did any of that hit home for you? Did you think about that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why it was cool. It's like these characters or these people, whether it's real or not, they kind of encapsulate them as the golden era of biker gangs, and then after that, it all went downhill, and it became about crime and drugs and all these
Yeah, it
awful
got
things.
really fucked up at the end.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this was kind of like the golden era of it, when it was, it wasn't blood in, blood out kind of stuff, and it was more about, taking care of each other and stuff and having fun or whatever. And so it's kind of cool to see that era. But yeah, I mean, I was not super stoked when they killed off Tom Hardy. Obviously, I think most of us saw it coming. They were kind of leading up to it. He went and basically said his goodbyes to everybody, but the fact that he got killed and then the guy that did it like didn't really get his justice, like that made it hard to swallow. And so it was a little
Toby
bit
Wallace plays the kid, the guy who like comes up and challenges him and ends up shooting him. Excellent performance. He was so creepy in his like his true out of control nature, that his mom's scared of him, even like it's just wild. Like he did an excellent job, and yeah, that put his villain arc like over the top when he just like smoked Tom Hardy like all cold hearted about it.
Yeah.
It was wild. Anything else stick out to you after you leave the flick? You just like, man, we got to talk about it.
Not really. I mean, I'm glad that it resonated more with you afterwards.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it resonated as much with me, but that's okay. Like it was one where I got done, I was like, okay, like that was a good couple hours or whatever. However long, it wasn't that long, but like I didn't feel like I had wasted my time. But I don't know if I'll ever like need to like revisit it, but like would watch it again, I guess. And so I think walked away and was happy for having seen it. So
I don't think I hated the girl, but the accent was kind of annoying. As soon as it starts and she's retelling and they're going back like, oh, so this is how they're choosing to tell the story. Like it's going back for her recordings and her interviews and her recollection of things. I found it just annoying with the accent, but then there's so much emphasis on their relationship and them being the love interest, like, oh, like they're together, but then they're like being torn apart type stuff. I didn't really care. I don't know if I think they had chemistry, but I just didn't. I'm like, what are the stakes here? I'm like, if he ends up with her or not, like, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, I also don't care if he like becomes like the leader of the gang. I just felt like the stakes were kind of low, across the board. Maybe if they were getting into more altercations, there was some more fighting, there was, because I'm sure there was, but I mean, they show like some basic fist fights and stuff, but I don't know. I wanted more action. I really wanted there to be more about bikes and bike culture. I thought they talk about some bikes and like what it means to like build some and stuff, but I really wanted to get in there. Like there was no like close up shots of bikes like as they're working on them or like glamorizing them or explaining why bikes are cool or anything like that. Like a little bit, but not enough for me. I thought I was gonna get in like a little bit more of the bike culture. What'd you think of that?
yeah, I mean, like I said, I've watched some other stuff that kind of has that culture to it, and obviously this is like, at least from what I've seen, biker gangs get a little more like complex and stuff, and they have like different roles they play, and different people have different, and they make people join up and do all these different things. And so we didn't see as much of that because this was like technically an earlier one or whatever, and so things were just a little more simple. They'd all sit around in a circle in a room and just kind of have their little meetings or whatever. And so I thought it was interesting. I liked the racing where they talked about how they kind of started off racing bikes and
cool,
stuff. I thought that was cool. Yeah, I liked it
There are
all.
a
I thought it was good.
couple great scenes, a couple great scenes like when they're at the house party that's gone wrong and they got one guy over here just getting beat, like you said, like blood out. It's like, nah, man, you're not leaving the gang or whatever. We don't care how original member you are, like OG you are. It's just gonna, we're gonna take care of business. And then you got the woman inside, like, all of a sudden things have devolved and it's not a family friendly spot anymore. It's like, you could get sexually assaulted and like nobody would know and like all this stuff. It was crazy. Like there was some good stuff. There was some good, interesting, heart-wrenching stuff. So I stand by my, 3 out of 5. I would say, go ahead, see it. But also not like it slightly mid in a lot of areas. Yeah. Thank you for joining us, everybody, for this movie magic reviews of the Bikeriders. 3 out of 5 across the board. So very surprising. Very surprising. It could have been better, but go ahead and see it if you're interested. Some nice Tom Hardy action. I always love a good Tom Hardy accent. So we'll see you next time, everybody. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you at the movies. We'll see you at the movies.